challenge becomes when we're actually creating more stress down the road by the way that we're dealing with stress today.
Hey, everybody, welcome to this podcast. I'm Jessica Heilman, and I am with Jeff Heilman remotely today because we are taking play to the streets. For the last 3 weeks, we've been talking about the importance of play, provoking a change, leading to a response, and today's episode is all about action and activating energy. How when we go and we decide to play and turn our mundane and rather trivial things into fun, how we can overcome procrastination and actually get some stuff done while really enjoying the process. Hi, honey, how are you doing?
Good morning. Thanks for dialing it in remote. Jessica's in sunny Las Vegas right now, although is it sunny in Las Vegas? I think it was overcast.
Yes, it's not just sunny. It's warm. I heard that it's monsoon season, and so there was some rain the other day. It's starting to break through the smoke and give them a little reprieve from the heat.
Yeah. You guys were down there for the Maroon 5 concert. So,
Yes,
and
that was
it was,
concert. The venue was the Dolby Live venue at the Park MGM, and it was a great little intimate venue, and there wasn't a bad seat in the house, so a huge it was a huge blessing and a lot of fun. I thought it was an appropriate time to uh, do and have this little mini adventure one day. First
yeah.
time I've ever been on an airplane. Didn't bring any luggage. Just went for an overnighter.
Yeah, just a handbag, single carry-on, and some flip-flops, sunglasses, and some lip balm. I mean, it wasn't a big ordeal for you to do it, and Madeline went with you, which I thought was super fun.
And I got to meet a friend that I had never met before after knowing each other for being basically pen pals, like modern day pen pals. Been talking to each other online for over 10 years, and we got to meet in person, and that was really cool. So
yeah, and we shout out to that family who we all know, Mr. and Mrs. And their son. So grateful that they were able to let us know in advance where they were going to be, and the fact that the Maroon 5 concert was the connection point in Las Vegas, I think is pretty cool. So definitely
and
fun.
I think that it was pretty appropriate in the sense that we woke up at 5:30 in the morning, and by 10 a.m. had made the decision to jump on an airplane to go to buy the concert tickets, and it was very spontaneous, and it was a great example of action and going forward and making things happen. Jeff, you were telling me that you were employing what you had learned, a principle that you had learned about, like just do it, or just do it now, or there was something that can you tell our audience that are listening, like, I know not everybody necessarily, I mean, I think that if we all lived in a 20-second time gap, I'm not sure how well financially that would suit for people, but on and in more cases than not, we get held back by putting things off or saying someday maybe, or like what have you learned in all of your readings about the balance between just making those snap decisions and doing it now versus maybe thinking about something a little longer, letting it matriculate, those types of things?
So let's talk about procrastination, and let's talk about some understandings of. I really want to do two things. I want to dig into procrastination as a philosophy, and from that uncover a problem statement in that philosophy, if one could find procrastination to be a problem. Some people don't have a problem with it. And then the second part are some tactics. So the philosophy, the word philosophy, as far as I understand, is basically thinking about what you're thinking about. It's an understanding of what the patterns are of thought whether they're narrative based, whether they're intellectual curiosities juxtaposed against the way that our genes drive survival and procreation. But thinking about what we think about, philosophy, applied to procrastination, seems to be top of everybody's mind these days. It's in the media, it's in my Facebook feed, it's in Instagram, it's on the news, it's in the webinars that people are talking about at work, and it's part of the self care. I don't want to say propaganda because that has a negative connotation, but at work there is, I guess you could say, antidote webinars available as part of our healthcare and self-care process. So what I'd like to look at least, and I'm not a physician, I'm not a psychologist, I don't have a lab coat, I don't have a degree, so these are all speculative, but I would say they're not without merit for consideration, because these are patterns that you and I have dedicated our lives to understanding human behavior and studying, and we've read quite a bit. And when you've spent 20 or 30 years studying something, it would almost be impossible not to see patterns. So I'm not talking here about a prognosis um, or a diagnosis. I'm talking about a pattern and patterns that we've seen and patterns that we've been able to look at tactically and then apply shifts in how we look at something and get results. So if we look at the philosophy of procrastination, typically the reason why people procrastinate, it seems over and over and over again, is because they are trying to deal with stress. When somebody says, okay, I got this report that's due, and that could be a school report or a work report, and there's a deadline and it's 2 weeks out. Well, if there's a conditioning that says that a report due on Friday, doesn't really need to be started until Wednesday night, maybe Thursday morning, and then you've got all the stuff Thursday that could happen before Friday, that actually long term creates stress. But the limbic system, our croc brain, which is our fight or flight, deals with stress all the time, and it does not want stress on Monday. So it says, I'm going to go lie on my bed in the middle of the day if I work from home, or go take a coffee break or a smoke break, and go talk to some friends, or answer my text, or scroll through my Facebook feed. And Facebook, they understand this, and I wouldn't say that Facebook creates procrastination, but it certainly provides a stress relief for people that are under tension to hit deadlines. And I'm certainly as guilty as any, if not more so. I probably, if we were to go toe to toe on screen time, I would probably have more screen time than
Well, isn't
90%
it,
of the people out there.
haven't they proven that it releases pleasure endorphins or something like that when
100%.
you go on your phone?
Yeah, I
Open
mean,
up
it's
to stuff.
designed to trigger dopamine,
Yeah,
and dopamine
dopamine,
in and
that's
of
it.
itself, we make it. Um, you can trigger it, you can drop it with all kinds of synthetic products, but we make it in our bodies. It's part of our life of pain avoidance and dealing with stress. The challenge becomes when we're actually creating more stress down the road by the way that we're dealing with stress today. And so, if we look at people who come from really stressful, really traumatic situations, um, that can drive people to really procrastinate a whole bunch. And so the first thing that we got to do is we got to look at where procrastination comes from. Procrastination does not mean that you're lazy. It does not mean that you're stupid. It does not mean that you're not ambitious or that there's something wrong with your personality. All it means is that you have developed habits or patterns. And again, this is Jeff's opinion. But you've developed habits and patterns of dealing with the stress in your life that comes to you, like it comes to everyone, by finding quick hits of dopamine associated with not doing the thing that would actually get rid of the stress in the first place. And the other pieces are there people in other countries, or this country for that matter, dying at an early age from heart attacks or carotid artery or lung cancer or any other kinds of diseases. 100% there's people that die from stress. But if we look at stress in and of itself, the studies show when you do double blind tests with regard to interpretations of stress, what we find is that if you take people into 4 different groups, you take one group of people and break them into 4 different groups, people that have a stressful life and people that don't think they have a stressful life, and then you subdivide the group of people who have a lot of stress in their life into people that think that stress is good and have stress, and people that think who stress is bad who have stress. The people who have think they have a lot of stress in their life and think that it's bad die sooner by years, if not decades. It's a stark contrast. So it's really about the interpretation of the stress that we've got more than the actual stress that we have. For example, you and I, Jessica, look at kids, having 7 kids, as being something very pleasing, very relaxing, very exciting, very long term. And we were able to stay at it in the kid manufacturing business for 20 years, recognizing that it would be another 30 years after Nessie was born that we were actually done with our child raising responsibilities. And at year 27 out of 50, we're barely halfway. And a lot of people look at that and they see their 1 kid or their 2 kids and they think about how stressful it is to raise kids. And they think, oh my God, how can you do it? And it's a compliment, and we take it as a compliment, but it's also a telltale sign of the interpretation of stress of parenting. So if we look at activating our energy and play, you want to talk a little bit about what you guys did on Monday to alleviate stress with all the kids, not just our kids, but the neighbors' kids on top of it?
What did we do? It's all a blur.
There
What
was a
did we do?
trophy involved.
Oh, the Mario Kart tournament. Oh, yeah. So we are big Nintendo fans. Shout out to Nintendo, not a sponsor. And as Nintendo fans, since you and I, Jeff, the 80s, I think Tetris came out in 85 on the Game
Yeah.
Boy or something like that. Andrew knows. We've just always been big video game consoles, specifically Nintendo. I think that it is very childlike in its approach to video games, and it's just always been something really fun. The music's engaging, and as a result, through the years of being a whatever generation I am, we've kept up with the Mario games specifically, and in this last few years, as Mario Kart 8 has come out, and we've been able to have uploadable via wireless new maps, new courses, new challenges. We just thought it would be tremendously fun to see if we could host a Mario Kart tournament and have it to be where we have brackets and we play for the trophy, which was created to be passed around. So whoever's the current champ holds the trophy. And so yeah, there've been some bigger tournaments where we had a lot more kids, and then there've been some smaller tournaments, but at the end of the day we just get together and race each other and have food and have fellowship. And when you were talking about when we were talking about the dopamine hit that comes from logging onto Facebook or Twitter or being social, it just really spoke to me about the fact that we are, as human beings, we've been created and designed to be social. We've been created and designed to have other people in our life and to be connected. And so I can see how a dopamine hit, like, oh, somebody's coming over to the house, or, oh, it's the same as when we used to run to the mailbox to see if there was a piece of mail in the mailbox, or answer the door and somebody was, oh, who's at the door? Who's ringing the doorbell? There appears to be a connective response based on being able to have other people in our lives and being able to be a part of a community, like having fun. And I think successful play, and when we are playing successfully versus resting, we are involving other people in that game or involving other people in that playtime that we are having, and it creates energy. Your energy and my energy come together and we create more energy, and it's such a great incubator for startup companies. It's such a great ability, and it's so unfortunate, having come out of the pandemic and having come out of COVID, the amount of people who want to remain remote and not see the value of going into an office and, in essence, turning work into play, because of that community aspect, that team of rivals or that team environment that I know it's very difficult. It can be very difficult right now to bring people back into that environment and get through to them that, hey, this is playtime, and the only way we're going to get over the hump in our company is if we start treating it like a community again and playing together in person.
What you're saying about play and what we were talking about as far as procrastination, if I'm an audience participant today, I'm going to want to know, well, that's really great, Jeff. Thanks for your philosophy on whatever muckety muck stuff for procrastination. But what do we do? What do I do about it? Can you give me something that I can take away from this, take away from the story, and and apply it to my life? And I'll give you a quick one. In the book Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude, which was the magnum opus of the partnership between Napoleon Hill and the billionaire insurance magnate, Clement Stone, he tells the story of a guy he'd either lost his wallet or he'd lost his passport. He was on a 3-week trip across America from Europe, and he landed in Washington, D.C. And he'd found out at 6 o'clock in the morning that he had lost his passport. So he goes to the police station. He says, I've lost my passport. I don't know what to do. I don't have any money. Can you just let me know if, I think they gave him a few dollars or got him some money for coffee. I think they gave him like $20 so that he could get some bus fare back to the hotel. And they said, if we find the wallet, we'll call you at the hotel. And he said it was like 8:30 in the morning, and I think he had a bus ticket. He had money to get from the police station back to the hotel. He didn't have his luggage or he had a little bit of luggage, no wallet, not a lot of money, but he had the next bus ticket to the next town where he could have gotten help. And there was really nothing for him to do between 10 o'clock at night, or 8 in the morning when he left the police station, and 10 o'clock at night when his bus was scheduled to leave Washington, D.C., whether he had his wallet and his passport or not. And the police said, hey, we'll get it to the hotel if we find it. So he had this story about how he had this prompter. It was a trigger. It was the same type of trigger to do something that people who procrastinate go to their Facebook feed or Instagram. And I don't mean to demonize social media. They've changed all our lives. It's created opportunities for us to get this message out. But let's not discount the fact that those tools are designed to get your attention. And when you're trying to buckle down on something, that's what you need most is your focus and attention. So he has this prompter called Do It Now. And I have met many people through sales and business who have that same prompter from that same book with that same story in mind, Do It Now. Do It Now was the prompter that W. Clement Stone himself used to get over the fear of knocking on doors. Just do it now. That's one prompter. The second is to set a timer, which sometimes I'll do on my phone. If I got something really hard, I'll just set a timer for 5 minutes. I'll be like, all right, I'm going to grind through this thing that's really hard for 5 minutes. And then the third, which was developed as a concept by Mel Robbins, is called the 5-second rule. And you can go and listen to the Impact Theory with Tom Bilyeu and listen to a 45-minute interview with Mel Robbins, who effectively goes from a nearly divorced owner of 2 bankrupt pizza restaurants with her husband, failed and out of work journalist in the media, and an alcoholic who couldn't get, this is her own words, couldn't get out of bed in her late 30s on time after 15 snooze buttons and drinking 3 two-finger doubles of scotch at night before bed, and she was missing getting her kids to the school bus at 8:30. And within a period of a year or two, she literally goes from that to a nationally syndicated XM radio show and the highest bill rate for any public speaker in North America. And she comes to this realization that the actual prompter of this 5-second rule allows her to have this superhuman power and self-discipline to overcome the adversity and the resistance of procrastination. Because once we understand what procrastination is, it's the body's way of dealing with stress. And then we understand that the procrastination is the wrong habit. The trigger is always the stress, but the habit from procrastination should be action or setting a timer or saying to yourself, the prompter, do this thing now, and then you take action on it. By taking out of the Charles Duhigg's power of habit wheel of some stimulus or trigger to an action to the reward that reinforces that behavior. If we go from trigger of stress to picking up our phone and going to Facebook to the reward being the dopamine hit from Facebook and the cost of losing 10 minutes or an hour, if we change that to trigger is stress, response is the prompter of do it now or the 5-second rule, and behavior is to obey that prompter and get the work done, then the hit that we get at the end of the satisfaction of not only alleviating the stress under the timeline, but also feeling good about ourselves from having accomplished something and rewired our mind. That, if we look at play and rest and relaxation, that activation of energy by shifting our mindset has a tendency to be way more productive, way more fun. And in the book Play It Away, I forget the name of the author, but he worked for Tim Ferriss. In the book Play It Away, he talks about getting to a point in his life where he was so exhausted that procrastination was the only way that he could deal with the stress of his life. He was in total burnout mode, and he tried everything from going to the desert and doing drugs to meditation to prayer to yoga. And the thing that actually got him out of that got him into a new rhythm, was playing catch, playing with a baseball mitt at the park instead of coffee meetings. If he wanted to get to know somebody, he would go play catch with them in the park, and that got him out of the procrastination loop by giving him rest, reduction of stress, and then a different trigger with a different behavior that led to some pretty productive meetings and great relationships, and obviously self-healing down the road.
There was a reel going around on Instagram this week, and it was the statement. There was a woman that was procrastinating, not wanting to do things, and the captions on the screen, the subtitles said, "Don't wait for your mood to be right before you do something." And then the next scene was, actually working out, doing something physical, because it is not your mood that creates energy, but your energy that creates your mood. And I thought that was especially poignant and thought-provoking, because if you think about it, how often do we say, I don't feel like it, I don't want to work out, I don't feel like it, I don't want to exercise, I don't want to make energy. But in reality, it is the energy that creates the positive mood that we all want to be able to actually walk in. The mood of being energetic, being happy. It's kinetic, right? Energy begets energy, and the more energy and the more activation and the more movement that we have, the better that we end up feeling. So don't wait for your mood to be right to move so that your mood will be right.
Couldn't agree with it more.
And I know this episode is not as long as we normally do, given the travel and all of that. But I did want to touch base to say the author of Play It Away is Charlie Hoen, Hoehn, and it's the Workaholic Cure to Anxiety. I believe it's called Play It Away, the Workaholic's Guide to Overcoming Anxiety, and it is touted as one of Tony Robbins' quoted as saying that it cures all stress. So it is the book to cure all stress. So everybody should check that out.
Yeah. So there's two things we can do. One, around procrastination with play, it is to reduce the stress. Right, you get dopamine and you get dopamine drops. You get cortisol, adrenaline flush when you exercise, when you play. And it doesn't have to be going to the gym and doing something stressful to get rid of the stress. It could just be going outside and taking a deep breath, or playing with your dog.
Being active, letting energy come, energy go.
That reduces the stress or the resistance to getting started doing your thing. And then the second thing is you can build triggers and new habits with regard to breaking down into bite-sized pieces what it takes to get started doing the thing, knowing that you can take breaks whenever you want. I was listening to something else dealing with trauma. Procrastination is a function of trauma, and the lady was talking about how she just said that the reason we procrastinate is because stuff's hard. Life is hard. Expenses. We talk about expenses and taxes a lot. That is just not something I really love doing, and so it's probably the thing that I procrastinate on the most is paperwork and systems. Even though those systems are meant to make our lives easier, the actual implementation of those systems in itself, if you don't do them on a regular basis, if you're not an accountant or a number cruncher or somebody that deals with those types of interfaces on a regular basis, they're hard and very much not intuitive for me personally. I'm much easier with a whiteboard, a piece of paper, or a microphone or a camera. Those things are easier for me to use. But you can say, all right, I can do anything for 5 minutes. I can sit here and look at my spreadsheet for 5 minutes and try to figure out patterns in how I could make my expenses work a little better or how I could do my taxes. So, and this goes back to, so I'll give you three prompters. One, to reduce the stress is play. Activate your energy to play and reduce the stress by upgrading your narrative and understanding that the reason why we procrastinate is because things are hard, because we have stress, and we need to overcome that resistance somehow. Once we understand that the reason why we're procrastinating is because we're trying to get out of a stressful situation, we can take a little bit more logical, thought-provoking methodology toward procrastination. And then the second thing is to build triggers that will change the habit. One of them is for the 4-part algorithm that I talked about on the last podcast. Slow it down. Give yourself a chance to breathe. Breathing is really good for us. We can't live without it. And when we're stressed, we can take a deep breath and slow down. And we can break down our project that we're procrastinating on into bite-sized pieces so that we can actually see completion in one tiny step, one pixel, if you will, of the finished picture. Then pin it down, figure out what the highest priority is for that group of tasks or those chunks, and then buckle down and say, I'm going to do this for 5 minutes, or I'm going to count down, or I'm going to put it in my calendar. Those things help. The prompter, do it now. Just when you think of something, take the trash out. Do it now. Just go now. Go. Make that trigger attached to those ideas that come up of projects that need to be done in the subconscious. And then the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins. So those things, to me, help activate on energy to overcome things like procrastination, deal better with stress, and really create an opportunity to get the productivity yields that we want from the work without the overwhelming traumatic stress levels that tend to sap our energy and our health.
And as we close out today, I would like to just encourage any of our listeners to think about, what are you afraid of? I know that we play the worst case scenario, best case scenario in many times, but by the end of the day, a lot of the things that are just keeping us from doing that thing, taking that first step, getting out there and putting ourselves out there in the public is fear, and that take that first step and make it fun, have some fun, and spontaneously begin to activate your energy in whatever direction that you're feeling most called and led to. That today is the day.
Today's all we got.
That's right. You only live once.
Carpe diem. Carpe diem. Seize the day. This is what we got. This is all we have is right now. And that right now might repeat. It might come in the future in different pieces, but we can't do anything about the future now. We can only really be present and focus on what we're doing right at this minute. And sometimes that's rest, and sometimes it's play. Sometimes it's work and building triggers and systems that help us get our work done to push against the resistance of the stress of people that want stuff from us and that we're accountable to. So loved being here with you today, Jessica. I hope you have a safe flight home. We'll see you tonight back in Silicon Valley.
We will see you guys on the floor and loving life and being a part of the messy, beautiful creation that we are leaving behind.
That's right. And folks out there listening, thanks for being with us. Feel free to like and subscribe. Tell your friends about it. We're available wherever podcasts are sold. on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. Thanks very much.
Talk to you later, guys.
Bye-bye.